This is The Civil Fleet, the podcast focused on the activist-led refugee rescue and support missions across Fortress Europe, with me, Ben Coles. In today's episode, we're going to speak with Serena from the Italian refugee rescue organisation Mediterranea Saving Humans. Serena is going to tell us about the organisation's ship, the Mare Jonio, and how it has been blocked in port for over a year. She tells us how the authorities recently told them to remove all of the rescue equipment from the Mare Jonio before it is allowed to return to sea. It's absolutely crazy. She's also going to talk about Italy and how the far-right government there is treating refugees. And we also touch on Lampedusa, which we talked about in the last episode too. So before we get on with the episode, I'd like to remind you that the Civil Fleet is not just a podcast, it's also a blog that hasn't been updated for a while. But on there we have some investigative stories, we have interviews, we have all kinds of things. So go to civilfleet.com to find out more about that. Also, if you like what the Civil Fleet is doing and you would like to help us to continue to platform the amazing people we've had on here, then you can do so by making a small donation. The Civil Fleet doesn't cost me much money, but it would be great to help cover the costs. So if you'd like to do that, you can buy me a cup of coffee, or you can make a massive donation if you like. You can do that if you go to ko-fi.com/civilfleet. That's ko-fi.com/civilfleet. Also, you don't need to do that. Times are hard, I know. No one's got much money. So one of the greatest things you can do to help support this podcast is just share it around, tell your friends about it. Give us a rating on podcast apps. That would really help. Could do with more people knowing about the situation in the Mediterranean. It always surprises me how much people don't know what is happening, not just in the Mediterranean, but also all across Europe in regards to refugees. It is absolutely terrible what is happening. Right, I've rambled way too long now. Let's get on with the show. Serena, thank you very much for coming on the Civil Fleet podcast.
Thank you for having us.
So Serena, I know that you work with Mediterranea Saving Humans, which is an Italian rescue organisation. So we're going to talk about that and talk about what's been happening to your ship, the Mare Jonio. I think that's how you say it properly. It looks like Jonio in English. So yeah, we're going to talk about that today. But first of all, I wondered, Serena, if you could tell us about your background, tell us about yourself a little bit before we get going.
I've been volunteering with Mediterranea since 2019, I think, and I am a member of what we call our land crews. Like Mediterranea is divided into the crew that we have on board that is actually on the ship going out on missions, and then we have all the groups and all the people that support us from the shore, so to speak. And I've been one of them since 2019. Previously, I was doing other kind of activism, mainly to do with feminism and LGBT rights and things like that. But obviously, when Mediterranea started in 2018, I've heard of it, although I was living abroad. And I immediately, the first time I started speak, I heard of it. I said, okay, I want to be one of them. I want to get involved because it was an amazing project. It is still an amazing project. And back then, it was the time when we had Salvini as an interior minister. There was this horrendous narrative that was taking Italy by a storm, and it was all this him shouting about closing the ports and not letting anyone in. And it was important to resist this kind of message, to show that there was a different kind of Italy, to remind everyone that the things they were saying were wrong, that the things they were trying to do were unacceptable from the human point of view, they were illegal. So yeah, it was important to take a side and to take action. I like Mediterranean because it's very hands-on. It's made by people that want to do things.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I can totally understand. In the UK too, we have like a pretty right-wing government here, and are constantly, denigrating migrants and people on the move. They're constantly attacking them. So I can understand why you and it's good. I think that you have it like it's an Italian organization, so not everyone in Italy thinks the same as this government, right? It's a good thing to point out, I think.
Indeed, but also not only what the things they're saying are appalling, are also completely false. Like they're describing the issue. They're not saying things as they are, obviously. And I understand that if you're not so into the matter, if you don't really look into this issue daily, like some of us do, you might be led astray. You might be led to believe that what they're telling you is true. Not everyone has the numbers. Not everyone looks at the political situations in the Arab countries. Not everyone follows, what's happening in the rest of the world. Might not understand migration issues. There are a number of reasons why people might not understand why they don't just take a plane to come to Italy like I do to go on holiday to Tunisia, no? And things like that. So for me, it was important. Obviously, paramount is the rescue work that we do at sea, but equally important is the work that we do to do counter information and to counter the narrative that they build. The government, the mainstream media that sometimes acts as a loudspeaker for them. So yeah, for me, it's also very important the monitoring and information work that we do.
And so, yes, Serena, could you tell us a bit about Mediterranea Saving Humans? So, can you tell us about the organization a bit more? I know it's based in Italy. I know you have a rescue ship called Mare Jonio. So, yeah, I wondered if you could just maybe tell us when it was founded and this kind of thing.
Yes, Mediterranea was born as an idea out of, as I said, the situation. Unfortunately, we all remember what the situation was, 2017, 2018. We also, there's tragedies happening in the Mediterranean Sea that for us Italians is, it's our sea, it's literally in front of us. So it became more and more unacceptable to see these things happening, to see what kind of government we had, to see that nothing was being done, because that coincided also with the end of Mare Nostrum, which was this mission that the Italian government at the beginning started to have our government assets doing rescue work. Then, in 2017, there was this flip where the non-governmental assets, the other associations, the other ships of the civil fleet that they were doing rescue at sea and they were collaborating with the authorities, all of a sudden started being demonized. And we changed, again, the narrative changed, and from being angels of the sea, we started to be like sea taxes, that were like just ferrying migrants across and we're fostering irregular immigration. And that's also when the process of criminalization of solidarity and migration started. So in this general environment started the idea, and for Mediterranea, we felt there was a need to have an Italian ship at sea, because all the associations that were doing sea rescue were foreign and with ships registered abroad. So that also allowed the Italian government to say, well, if you have a German ship, why don't you take these people back to Germany? If you have a Spanish ship, why don't you take these people back to Spain? And so by this started the whole narrative of the closed ports. No, I'm not going to let these people come into port. So that's why we felt it was important to have an Italian ship to be at sea and say, you cannot close the port to us because we're Italian, so we're going to come in anyway. And again, simply by having an Italian ship at sea, that was the biggest act of resistance to these kind of messages. So at the beginning, it started out a bit of a conspiracy. We always say that it started as a conspiracy for good, because it was all done in secret. We acquired the ship with much effort and a lot of goodwill from a lot of people. And we started doing works in the Sicilian port, and we set sail for the first time on the 3rd of October 2018, which was the 5th anniversary of this big shipwreck just off the coast of Lampedusa, where 368 people lost their lives in 2013. So the date also was symbolic, because that shipwreck was the one that kind of brought the issue back to the forefront and led to the Italian government starting the Mare Nostrum mission, which was the deployment of Italian assets for sea rescue. That unfortunately was discontinued like a year later.
Yeah, thanks for that background.
So,
Yeah, I'll just say, sorry to cut in, the Mare Nostrum. Yeah, you just said was Italian ships, that a big Italian operation, and I think it was replaced by like Operation Sophia, right, which was a EU-wide EU-wide rescue mission, and then that all stopped in like 2019 or 18. I can't remember the date exactly.
Yeah.
And then since then, it's just been ships like yours and Sea Watch and Sea Rescue,
Yes.
etc.
I mean, the non-governmental ships were there already, but before we worked together. So there was a very, very collaborative environment. So there was an exchange of information, and there was a collaboration at sea between the governmental and non-governmental forces. While then in 2017, when things started to shift, and the narrative started to shift, and the process of criminalization of solidarity started with the trial that now is ongoing in Trapani against Juventa, Médecins Sans Frontières, and Save the Children. The trial started last year, and it's still ongoing. When there was that shift, that's when we went our separate ways, and the collaboration stopped, and the criminalization started. So by around the same time, the missions Mare Nostrum and Sophia stopped as well.
Yeah, and so since then it's just been the rescuers, like you said, and it's really it's really conflicting, right? Because I think it's great that there's civil society has stepped in where governments have failed, but it's also not. You shouldn't have to do that, right? It shouldn't be something that civil society has to do. The governments ought to be doing this because they have the assets and all the equipment.
Absolutely. This is something we're also there to remind them of their responsibilities as a country that subscribes to certain international conventions and has certain ideas about themselves. It's our duty to rescue, to help people in need. So it's our responsibility to rescue people at sea. It's common sense. It's human decency. It's what the international conventions say. So we're there to remind them that we are doing our job, and the job that it should be theirs.
Operation Sophia was kind of stopped due to pressure from Matteo Salvini, right, who was Italy's interior minister for a while. I don't know what his position is now. I think he's involved in the government, right?
Yes, he's transport minister now. So
I see, yeah, but and it was kind of pressure from him and the government at the time that kind of put an end to Operation Sophia, I think.
Yes.
And then he, like, we've done a lot of stories about him, and he's been mentioned a lot on the podcast. But he's blocked ships from entering port after they'd rescued people. It's terrible. He's done some terrible things, right?
Yes, that's also what they used to do with us. There's different times and different tactics that they used over the years to stop and hinder the work of the civil fleet. So of all the organizations and ships that work at sea. So at the beginning there was the administrative seizure. So every time we rescued someone, we went back to port, then they would seize our ships for a number of months. There was never they were never telling us, oh, we're keeping, we're holding and sizing your ship for 3 months. No, it's like, we're sizing your ship, and then at some point, months later, they would say, okay, we're releasing your ship now. So that was the first period. Then there was the period of delaying the assignation of a port of safety. When you do a rescue operation, when you come back to port, you have to ask for permission to enter to port, and it was their tactic to just deny that, simply not respond to requests for disembarkation for days on end. So that was another matter of delaying our work.
And now, right, they're kind of accepting ships in, but they're sending them miles and miles and miles away, right?
Yes, which is basically the same thing, because it delays matter a lot, because if it takes you 4 days to reach the port and then 4 days back to the area of operation, effectively you lost 10 to 12 days of operativity.
How is the government there justifying that? Like, I haven't heard. I mean, obviously it's bullshit, whatever they say, but I just wonder what is their justification for sending ships like they rescue. If it was a UK, just to put it in a UK context, is if someone got rescued in the Channel, it's like the government sending the rescue ships to the Shetland Islands, way in the north of Scotland, to disembark people.
Yes.
It's just, how do they justify that?
I think they justify that by not wanting to, especially what we say today. They're not really justifying that. They're just saying, you spent 2 years telling us that we were too slow in assigning you a port, and now we are assigning you a port straight away. As soon as you ask it, boom, you have it. So it's sort of like, we can never make you happy then. So it was a way to, I think, take the carpet from under our feet. But at the same time, they can say that it's not to overwhelm the Sicilian ports, because obviously, because of its geographical position, Sicily is at the front and usually the destination port for all the ships, the one that arrive independently and ours. Obviously, what they don't say is that transport by land is a lot quicker. So, it takes, 12 hours to drive from the south to the north of Italy, and it takes 4 days by ship. So it would still be much better to disembark the rescued people in Sicily, and then if we want to transfer them further north, it will be much quicker to do it overland.
Yeah, but
this is what they're not saying.
Yeah, and it's clear that the intention is to just delay rescues, to keep the rescue ships away from the sea, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's their intention.
Absolutely. Besides, it's also obviously it comes at a higher cost. Like at any operation that lasts 4 days longer and travels that many miles further costs you more. So it's another way of hindering our work, of course.
God, it's so terrible.
And this is obviously without considering that the people that we rescued are unnecessarily kept at sea on a ship, which is not exactly ideal, because these are not cruise ship. You don't travel in comfort and luxury. Of course, you travel safely and everything, but by international laws, the rescue operation is not completed until you're safely disembarked in a port of safety. So the rescue operation lasts 4 days longer. These people are not considered completely rescued. Like the rescue is not over until they disembark. And the reason being is not an ideal situation to be kept on a ship for 4 days more.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just terrible. So let's move on to the Mare Jonio, your ship, which I think has been blocked from leaving port, or stopped, or it's not been able to leave port. I think,
yes,
or not been able to go on a rescue for a long
time. Being the only ship that has an Italian flag is very important, and it's very important for us to be there. At the same time, puts us a bit in the hands of the Italian government that then that has to, give us the permissions and the authorization and the certificates to be able to sail. So we've been under inspection by the authorities since the 22nd of August. And on the 6th of September, finally, they communicated to us that, you basically ask for certification for certain activities, for certain tasks that you can carry out with your ship. And we have asked for the search and rescue certification, but also for other certification like cargo, recoil. They have denied us the search and rescue certification, which is, the official permission that that's the activity that you carry out with your ship. They've done that, although the Italian Naval Registry has certified us for search and rescue. So, and normally any other ship with the certification from the Italian Naval Registry would be allowed. It's kind of automatic, they work together. But in our case, they carried out their own inspection and they decided not to grant us the certificate for search and rescue. They have granted us the other certifications that we asked for cargo, recoil, and eventually on the 6th of September, they communicated to us that in order to operate with cargo, we would have to disembark a list of equipment that was on board. And the list of the equipment that they've given us is all the search and rescue equipment. So the ribs that we use to carry out the rescues, the life vests that we use to secure the safety of the people we rescue, the 600 extra portions of food that we have for the people that we rescue, the extra clothes that we have to give to the people we rescue. So although they have had the cheek to say that their order nothing to do with our rescue equipment, it was exactly the list of rescue equipment that we have on board, the thing that they asked us to disembark. So it is again another attempt to stop us, because they basically threaten us with fines and arrest if we contravene this order. Obviously, we have all the intentions to set sails as soon as possible. So
yeah, it's absolutely absurd that they can, it's a rescue ship, and you just said that the naval authority said that you had, they gave you the certificate or the permission to leave, right? But this is
yeah.
Which agency is it? Sorry, that's done this to you.
It's called the Italian Naval Registry is called RINA in Italian, RINA, and the authorities that are stopping us are the port authorities, the ABO, like the official government port authorities.
And would that come?
They carry out their own inspections. We're still under inspection. It's not completely over yet.
And is the port authority under Salvini's department, like the Office of Transport?
Yes, it's a mix of the Transport and the Interior Ministry.
Great. That's just so. It's just yeah.
Let me also specify, it's unheard of having inspections for a month. Normally, these things are done in, I don't know, a day or two.
Right, because other ships,
just to clarify, yeah,
like commercial ships and things like that, they'll get these things really quickly, right? But when it's a rescue ship, then there's suddenly all these extra hoops to go through.
Yeah, again, it's another way that they have to delay our activity.
We've seen this a lot with the other rescue ships, like the Ita Mare, and I remember I can't remember the name of the ship now, but I remember this has happened a lot, with different authorities, right?
They're also subject to inspections, although the ones that they are subjected to are slightly different from us, because their flag is not the Italian flag. Because basically, by being part of the merchant navy of Italy, Italy has to sort of guarantee for us, So that's why they can have so much control and do so many inspections, so to speak. Because as an Italian ship you go in the world as an Italian, so to speak.
So when are you hoping to go back out to sea and carry out like a rescue operation, or can you not really say at the moment?
We don't have a date yet because, as I said, we still the inspections. They're still carrying out other inspections, so we don't have a permission to leave port yet. But it is our intention to leave port as soon as we have all the papers in order.
Yeah, and obviously the purpose of all of this is just to delay again, to keep the ship out of the sea.
Yeah.
When was the last time the Mare Jonio was able to go on a rescue mission?
In last year, unfortunately, we've not been at sea this year, but we carried out 3 missions last year in 2022. So this will be our first mission for 2023.
I think are you able to talk about the court? Like I think the last time I had anyone on from Mediterranea saving lives.
It was
Iason,
yes.
Yes, and he mentioned that was like in episode 18, and I think this episode would be like 46. So it's been a long time.
Okay.
But yeah, he mentioned, and we talked about an investigation that was going on. Obviously, a bogus investigation into this ship. Can you talk about what's happening there?
Yes, of course. It is sort of always the same script. So, as I said, the process of criminalization of solidarity started in 2017, and in this case, and in some cases, literal criminalization, as in people that organizations and the activists have been put under investigation for favoring and abetting illegal immigrations. This is usually the charges that are brought against us after each rescue. So there have been, I think, at least 10 legal proceedings over the last few years against various organizations of the civil fleet. We had 4 against us, and in 3 of them we've been acquitted already. So there's a preliminary investigations, and then you go to the preliminary hearings, and they have always confirmed that there was no wrongdoing, and so we've been acquitted each and every time. But again, this is another way to hinder and put obstacles on your way of various sorts. This last investigation that is still open is connected to the case of the Maersk. I don't know if you remember, it was the end of summer 2020, and there were 27 people that were held on the Maersk, which was a petrol ship, for 38 days. So the Maersk was a commercial petrol ship. It was in no way connected with rescue activities, but obviously they responded to the law of the sea, which is to rescue people in need. And so they rescued these 27 people on the move and took them aboard their ship for a number of reasons. They were outside of Malta's territorial waters. So they were asking Malta, Malta was the closest port, so they were asking Malta for permission to disembark, and they had no answer for Malta. And they were held at sea for 38 days in August, mainly August, beginning of September 2020. And that's when we set off on our mission. We received a call over the radio system. A doctor was needed. We had a doctor, so we went aboard the ship to assist and give medical assistance. And eventually, we took the people on board our ship and disembarked them in Sicily a few days later. It wasn't as smooth and straightforward as I'm saying it now. So that's when the investigation started for aiding and abetting illegal immigration. So that was 3 years ago. I think we just passed the anniversary. We still haven't had a chance to have a say in it, but we are waiting for the summon for the preliminary.
I remember that very well. I was reporting on it a lot at the time, and
Yes.
yeah, it was really crazy. And those people that were stuck on the Etienne, the Maersk Etienne, were jumping overboard as well, weren't they? And like they're trying to kill themselves because they were just so stressed about the situation. Yeah, that was really bad.
Especially because, again, their ship, not being a rescue ship, was absolutely not equipped in any way to welcome an extra 27 people on board. That means, lack of food, lack of means, lack of accommodations, like a number of things. So it was really inhumane to keep them at sea for that long.
And what the Mare Jonio did, and the crew, you guys, what you did was like a humanitarian mission, right? Like they were being held there because Malta was refusing. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's crazy.
The thing is, it would be it would be normal in any other scenario to say we have someone on board that doesn't feel well. You radio someone for a doctor comes and say, okay, we need to bring these people ashore because they need medical attention. Some of them more than others. If it happened with any other person and any other ship, it wouldn't have been such a big issue.
Yeah, if they weren't migrants, right, then it would have been like, just bring them in, yeah. So this is really terrible, and I hope that obviously the preliminary hearing shouldn't even happen, but hopefully this goes soon, so it's not hanging over, the organisation.
No, we definitely want it to happen because usually that's when the judge says that there's no further proceedings. So that's what usually puts a stop to it.
Yeah, so it needs to happen soon, right? And I know that the Juventa crew, we've had several episodes with the members of the Juventa, and we've had the lawyer on as well, Francesca something, I can't remember.
Francesca Cancellaro.
Yes, we've had her on the podcast. Maybe it's time we have an update. It's been a while, but yeah. So these court cases are ongoing, right, and just continuously delaying things and making it.
Yes, the judicial process is also quite slow moving. So
is it particularly slow for the rescuers? Or is it kind of always like this for a lot of for other things?
It is generally a slow process, I'm afraid, in Italy, but for sure, no one is in a hurry to conclude this. So on the other side, I mean.
Well, I hope it's done quickly, and I hope that the Mare Jonio can get out to sea soon and rescue lives.
Thank you.
Yeah. I wonder
we went at sea even with the all the missions we did last year's were all when the investigation was ongoing. We are determined not to let this affect us or affect the work that we do anyway.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it shouldn't, right? Because all you did was you just did a humanitarian thing, right? You just did your job. So we today, as we're recording, today is September the 20th, and I'll try to get this episode out really soon. But the episode before, I just interviewed someone yesterday from Maldusa, the Maldusa project. Yes. Jasmine from the Maldusa project, I interviewed her yesterday. And we talked about the situation in Lampedusa. It's really good to have an Italian person on because often, we hear a lot about what's happening in Italy. So it's great to have an Italian person on. I wonder if you can tell us, I think we have an idea, but kind of what's going on in Italy, politically with migrants and people on the move, and how, because I know that you've got quite a far right government, a right wing government. So do we in the UK. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening there?
Well, what's happening here, what we see is the direct result of a very deliberate poor management of the situation in Lampedusa. Lampedusa is a very, very, very small island off the coast of Sicily. And it's generally the landing spot, the more obvious landing spot for all, not only for the organization that do rescue at sea, but for the people on the move that arrive autonomously in Italy. So there is what we call hotspot, which is a first center where people on the move that arrive when they are registered by the authorities are kept in this hotspot, we call them, before being entered into the system, so to speak. And the Lampedusa hotspot, again, Lampedusa being a small place, started off with, I think it's 450 places in the center. But it's routinely overcrowded because there's so many people arriving on the island. And although the Italian government has plenty of assets and resources and personnel on the island, they don't seem to. They don't organize transfers of people from the hotspot in Lampedusa to the other hotspot and to the rest of the system, welcoming system in Italy, in the rest of Italy. So what we've seen is a chronic overcrowding of the hotspot in Lampedusa. What we've seen in the last few days is that there's been a spike in arrivals for sure, and so the overcrowded situation got out of hand, and it was 20 times the allowed number of people in the center. So obviously it was an untenable situation for the people in the center, for the people on the move, because literally there was no space for them. So they had to put out temporary accommodations, and people on the move had to sleep in the streets and in the parks and things like that.
Yeah, and we saw local people were helping. Some people were giving food to the people. Right, there was kind of
it was an amazing show of solidarity and support by the local community and by the tourist community, because they immediately all moved to provide food and water to the people that arrived on the island. So it was a very, very, very good show of solidarity. And at the same time, there were also demonstrations by the local population that were obviously protesting against the government and the fact that it was the government doing this. Is the government and the politicians routinely call this an emergency, but obviously an emergency that lasts for 30 years, it cannot be called an emergency anymore. And as I said, not with the numbers that we saw in the past week, but the center in Lampedusa is routinely overcrowded. So this is not an emergency. This is poor management or a very shrewd management of someone that is already working at the next electoral campaign for the European elections that are coming up soon, for example. Obviously, the government has made migration a paramount issue of the identity of the campaign. It's a big source of support from their base. So all this is obviously very convenient for them.
And in the rest of Italy, like on the mainland, it's this kind of situation happening as well. Like, I mean, not as intense as Lampedusa, I guess, but underfunded in.
There are other landing spots in the south of Italy, but nothing that sees the numbers that Lampedusa sees. And combined with the small size of the island, it's sort of a more difficult combination.
And I don't know if you know, but the UK government has started putting people that arrive here. Like the UK gets much fewer people than Italy does arriving, but so the UK has decided to put people on boats, they detain them on boats and or they've put them in like military camps and stuff. It's really terrible. Is this kind of I think it's Giorgia Meloni who's the Prime Minister. That's her name, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Yes. Has her government decided to do anything as drastic as that, or kind of worse?
No, for the moment, no, not something as drastic as illegal and dangerous for the people on board as the UK solution. But yesterday was announced that the government has decided to build more center for repatriations, and they have decided to extend the time that people on the move will be kept in these centers. They called in Italian is they call CPR, and there are centers where people on the move await the decisions and eventually the repatriation to the original country. So there is 9 currently in Italy, and they decided to build an additional 8, I think, so to double this. It's their idea to build it in sort of like remote, scarcely populated areas, which is another way to keep them out of sight and out of mind. This is a separate issue as well, because there's many reports of the also violations of human rights and the inhumane conditions in which people live in these centers that are to all effects detention centers, although these people have committed no crime, but they don't have the freedom to go in and out, for example, so they literally held there, so without having committed any crime.
Yeah,
so,
I think it's the same across Europe, isn't it? It's definitely the same situation as here.
Luckily, not as drastic as a floating prison, but still.
It's really bad. Like, the UK used to do that in like the Victorian era. It's just such a crazy thing that they're doing it again. It's like anyway. So yes, I think I've asked everything I wanted to ask Serena about Italy and about Mare Jonio and Mediterranean saving humans. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap up here?
I always think I've talked too much, so I don't think I will have anything to add about this. But we're just determined to go out at sea and continue to do what we do, which is the right thing to do. And yes, I think that there is people on the move have proven time and again that there's no wall high enough that you can put. If someone is determined to move, they will find a way to, cross the border, no matter how difficult you make it for them. And I think in respect of this determination and everything, so we're there in solidarity with them, to help them.
Yeah, it's good that there's organisations like it's good that there's organisations like yours that are there, that are helping people. I mean, it's also bad that they have to exist, but it's because they have to. It's good that you're there.
Obviously, we exist with the dream that we won't be necessary one day. As I said before, there's 2 planes, there's 2 levels of work. On one side, the search and rescue, which is super important because it's unacceptable that people have to die just trying to, move to another place and take hold of their lives and decide to have a better life somewhere else. I don't think anyone should be punished with death for deciding to move to a better place or a different place. And on the other side is what needs to change, though. Obviously, it's the way we speak about migration, the way we regulate migration, the way we decide that we allow certain people in, and we have to keep other people's out at all costs. So even the idea of having a European mission, a European search and rescue mission, is just a one step. The ultimate goal, obviously, is for freedom of movement and for no one to have to go through what they go through just to move to another country.
Well, Serena, that was a really good conversation. Thank you for updating us on the situation. I can't believe the absurd situation that you've been told to get rid of your rescue equipment. That's just mental. I hope this inspection goes quick and that it gets resolved soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, and I'll be in touch.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, that was episode 47 of the Civil Fleet podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks again to Serena and everyone at Mediterranea Saving Humans. They are an amazing organisation, and I hope they will be back at sea soon. As usual, check out the blog, Go to silverfleet.com, find out what's been going on there. Also, you can support us if you want to help us cover the costs of platforming the awesome people that we have had on the Silverfleet podcast. You can do that by going to co-fi.com/silverfleet. You can donate the price of a coffee. I think that's what the co stands for in the co-fi thing. Anyway, you can donate a small amount, donate loads if you like, set up a regular donation, that kind of thing if you want. You can share us around on social media, you can tell your friends about us, you can give us a rating in podcast apps. That will also be really helpful. Okay, I do have another episode in the can, so we should have another episode out pretty soon. So stay tuned for episode 48. In the meantime, cheers, I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.